There is a fort in New York where people have been looking for a piece of American history for more than 200 years. So far, they've found a lot of old nails. To date, nobody has died trying to solve the mystery, and according to legend, nobody has to die before the fort can be found.
So the deaths in and around the Minnesink area made the papers, not only here locally and in Pennsylvania, but they made the papers all the way over in places like Leeds, England, where these atrocities of war, of course, are only being presented from the side of the settlers as to kind of stir up support and financial support for the war. So in June of 1758, the Native Americans, the closest they get to Fort Gardiner, it seems, is they attack the home of the Wallings. And Mary Walling is 24. She's out collecting bits of wood for their fire. And she is fired upon by 3 Native Americans and starts screaming. And that alerts the rest of her family in the house that they're being attacked, and her brother Inman goes up to the roof, and there is a sort of a hatch window in the roof for defense purposes, and he fires upon the Native Americans, and at that point they're already scalping his sister in the yard. So he is able to scare them off by shooting at them from the house, and is able to save his other sister and his mother, who's a widow at this point. So there's chickens behind me. Now there is the map drawn out by John Hampton, who is the surveyor we talked about, and he does have the line of forts all on there with the distances between them, but it's extremely vague. It just shows the fort somewhere being between Port Jervis and Goshen. It doesn't really have a very specific location on it. Fort Gardiner actually ends up in New York by about 1769. The records are hard to find for land deals and that type of thing because of the border changing back and forth. It's hard to know whether you're supposed to be looking in the Orange County Clerk's office, or if you're supposed to be looking in the Sussex County Clerk's office, or are the New York State Archives going to have these, or does the New Jersey Archives have these? And so that border war created sort of this no man's land of historical documents it makes it really hard to study and track down information. We do know that Richard marries Isabel Simpson, and he has just one daughter, Hannah, and they were both alive during the French and Indian War, living in what was supposed to be a wooden structure. Their house was never reported as being stone or anything else like some of the other forts were. Unfortunately, by 1768, Richard Gardiner dies of unknown causes. He's only 43 at this point. And although Hannah is just 18, she's already been married to John Ferguson and is presumably not living at home. His wife does go on to remarry another Richard, who's actually a surveyor as well, and his name is Richard Etzel. And so, again, the property seems to sort of dissolve into the legalities of deeds after this point. And there's even in the 1798 deed where Hannah and Isabel are splitting up the property legally at this point, there's no mention of the fort being on either property or any of their properties. So it sort of disappears from history. So there is a 1775 map that shows Fort Gardiner being at the edge of the Drownlands, but it doesn't get any more specific than that. The Drownlands today is been drained and it's part of the Black Dirt region. Then there is a 1776 map showing the different boundaries of New Jersey and New York, and showing that it has been settled, and it shows the fort north of that settled line, but again, not very specifically where. Then in 1802, the maps show nothing but mills along the Rutgers Kill. And there's no further mention in any map after this of Fort Gardiner or Major Gardiner or Captain Gardiner or any Gardiner. We do notice that eventually the area near the fort starts becoming known as Gardinerville, and they seem to have lost the I in there. And it's debatable whether that's named after Richard Gardiner or whether that's named after a later settler who came along, Ira Gardiner, who oddly enough doesn't seem to be related to Richard at all. So just to cause confusion, there was two different Gardiners right in the same area, one with an I, one without an I, one from New Jersey, one from Long Island. And maybe the people of the area just started calling it Gardinerville because it was sort of a strange coincidence that people of similar names were settling in the same area of Rutgers. So what became of Fort Gardiner? Well, nobody really knows. Historians have been looking for it for hundreds of years. It's been speculated that it's on the Minisink side, and other people speculate it's on the Wayanda side of the Rutgers Kill. And of course, the answer is nobody knows. We know different historians have been looking for it. But again, it's still in that sort of a no man's land of historical records, in that the New Jersey historians who have done research and archaeological digs on the other fort sites haven't crossed into New York to study Fort Gardiner. And a lot of historians in New York don't know anything about Fort Gardiner because it wasn't in New York during the French and Indian War. So when you read on it, it's the Jersey fort. It doesn't seem like it's here, except it is here. It's here somewhere in Minisink. A friend of mine who lives in the Gardinerville area has a foundation in the woods on her land, and it's undocumented. When you go through all of the property maps and property records, there's no record of anyone ever living there or having a structure there. And it's, sort of a square-ish stone foundation. There is an engineered road that goes down from the foundation down to the Rutgers Kill. That looks like it would have taken quite a lot of effort to carve into the side of the bank so that you could get down to the Rutgers Kill and then cross there. It's pretty shallow right there. So you could cross with a wagon or on foot across the Rutgers and get out to the drowned lands that way. There are mounds, sort of human-sized mounds of dirt in different angles in front of the foundation area that don't seem to make any sense. And then there's stone walls in the area that start and stop in different locations. When we started looking into her land records and trying to trace back who might have owned it, the Gardiner name did start to come up in some of the land deeds. And so we started trying to research from the other end to find out who were the Gardiners and what they might have owned. And we ended up searching this lost fort, because we have a lost fort and we have a found foundation, and they might be the same thing. Now, of course, we've contacted local historians and archaeologists, and we have been trying to get someone out there to take a look at the site. But in order to entice a professional to take their time and come out there, you do need to have enough research and documentation and sometimes artifacts to show them. So we have done some light digging, which I will save for the next video as to what we've been finding out in there. But we're trying to hope to connect that to the research so that a professional will come out and take a look at the site and maybe do a further study and really determine if this is the fort site or if it's just a 1700s settler's house from the same time period. So we have a lot of work to do, and I hope you stay tuned to watch more episodes to see how we're doing on this.